Okay, great. Hello and welcome to another Ms. JD chat. I'm your hostess today, Janet Wallace. I am a former board member of Ms. JD. I'm now board emeritus. And I'm really excited about today's chat because just about 3 weeks ago, not even 3 weeks ago, I opened my own law firm. And so I am thrilled, beyond thrilled, to have the opportunity to speak with Amanda Green Alexander today. And I have so many questions, and I am so excited. We have been doing a Firm of Her Own series at Ms. JD for several years. And it has just been such a wonderful series of posts on our blog. And so I would direct all of our viewers today to go check out the blog and see those wonderful posts. So let's get started. Amanda, let's start at the beginning. Why did you decide to open your own law firm?
So I was practicing law. I had done an opportunity to clerk at the Supreme Court, at the Court of Appeals. And after that, having decided to delve into some other judicial law clerk work. Then I also decided that I was going to work for the city. And so I had a municipal deputy city attorney position. I was doing a lot of work, a lot of workers' compensation, employment law, and some other things. And so since the beginning, I've always wanted to have my own law firm. When I say since the beginning, I mean 8 years old. And so I've always wanted to sort of do things and hopefully encourage people at the same time. But I was driving every day from the parking garage every morning, driving past this sign that says for lease. And every morning, every afternoon when I came out of the parking garage, I would see, or more like night, because I was a first year. So of course you work till night. But every day I would see this sign that says for lease. It's a small space, probably about 600 square feet, probably the size of my current office was the entire office size. And so I decided that I needed to sort of forge my path. And I thought that this for lease sign was a sign from God. And I had been for 2 years in 2005, operating, still working full time, but also having the ability to take on some family law cases. And so I was still able to maintain my full-time employment and do that work. But eventually I decided, okay, this is going to be perfect timing. I had a position as adjunct professor at Jackson State University and served with them for a while. And so it was an opportunity that worked out perfectly because I would also have a visiting professor position and that would sort of secure any possibility of money coming into the house. So I decided to forge forth, and I have not looked back since. I tried to work from home about 2 weeks. And after having been the person at home who was scheduling the exterminator, washing loads of clothes all day because I couldn't stop doing one without the other, I thought, we've got to go. And after it took them 1 hour for me to process the mail to get a motion out and filed, I realized I needed some help. And I had grown accustomed to having a little help and a little backup. So I jumped right in and have not looked back. And it has been a wonderful experience.
Wonderful. So I'm at my kitchen table right now because although we have a very small office space like you described, it doesn't yet have internet access. So that's one of the challenges of starting your own firm is all of these administrative tasks that you referenced with the mail. So what were your goals when you started the firm?
So ultimately, I attended this great investor ceremony of one of my very dear friends who's served as a magistrate judge. And I remember one of the, that our firm motto actually evolved from that ceremony. I listened, and one of the mottos of our firm is to do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. And it's taken from the book of Micah. And one of the major, I think tenets of the firm is how do we service our client? How do we provide them with a perspective that is a diverse perspective? Oftentimes we operate in a venue of everybody sort of thinks alike, and that's not at all the case. But you think how we're a summation of our experiences. And so my goal and my, certainly driving force was, how do I impact people on both sides, both the businesses that I represent and also the individuals who are on the other side? How do I give a perspective that lends itself to be impactful, not just talk about it, but as one of the kids in Sunday school says, be about it. And so that, I think, was one of the major goals, that I wanted to be able to provide that. And then to focus on the importance of relationships, that oftentimes, and at some point when I first started, we were working on a workers' comp and employment only defense firm. That was primarily our work. And in most of those relationships, you had certainly at some point people who started off a path, I'm sure, who believed that things were going to work out very well in their relationship. As an employer, they had high hopes for the employee probably had high hopes for that position. And so things somewhere went awry. And to be able to provide a goal and perspective of relationships matter, and that while you may be in litigation, is there a way for us to somehow be in a space where we can attack the issue and not the person, and to be able to bring that forward, because at some point it will set a precedent on how the employer will behave in the future, and how the employee, who may very well be disgruntled or at least involved in litigation, how that word gets back to the employees who are currently working. And so those kinds of things, understanding the perspective of, this is why it matters, that relationships is going to matter. And consistently throughout the firm, that's what we sort of focus on, is relationship.
Yeah, I really love that. I love that phrase, relationships matter. You mentioned that to me yesterday as well. And will you speak a little bit more to that in terms of networking and building a client base, and just a little bit more about that, and how those relationships have helped to form your firm?
So my father, who was a Baptist preacher in Mississippi, I was raised by a mom and dad who were very much so focused on being connected in the community. And one of the things that we often learn, and my mom and both dad both reiterated constantly, is that we treat people how we want to be treated, that we focus and connect with people on different levels. I think that the practice of law, just like anything else, is about relationships. I think that we have an opportunity to not just connect with people professionally, but we connect people personally. It's going to be as important and vital for you to connect with the individual who is ensuring that the trash is delivered on time and picked up as it needs to be, that just as well as you're going to be ensuring that your expert is where they're supposed to be and saying the things that they need to say. Connections, relationship, resourcefulness. And so the relationship that we have, for example, our firm has built, started when I was, a small kid, but certainly the ability to come to a college like Tougaloo College, which is in Mississippi, north of Jackson, to come to that college and have that great experience, and then to move and make those connections with, at the time, a person who was running for the Supreme Court, who had been appointed into a position that was first served by the first African-American justice of the Supreme Court. And so I was operating, as a volunteer my freshman year, with a great opportunity to, run the student campaign on site at Tougaloo. That relationship then forged me to an opportunity to have a great pre-law advisor who was very kind enough to share with us and reiterate how important it is for us to connect, not just with the alumni of the school, but then also to connect with other members of the Magnolia Bar, for example, who were, a very vital part. And so my very first job when I left Tougaloo College was at the Mississippi Bar Center. And that was as a result of the person who had served, that I served with the campaign with. I called and I said, I just graduated from college. I'm not quite ready to jump right into law school. I've been accepted, but I've decided to wait for a year, and I'd like to go to graduate school. And I need a job to work while I'm in graduate school. And so he gave me an opportunity to work at the Mississippi Bar, because he was the president at the time, and called some people and made some calls. And, and 20 years later, those relationships still exist. I was the person responsible as the executive assistant to make sure the drink orders were correct and the Coke orders were correct and the lunch was served. And in that process, I learned great many things. I met lots of people, and those relationships started at the Women in Profession Committee, a very new budding committee that was sort of instrumental in the advancement of women in the profession. And so the relationships I have with those ladies now, who are now, very successful in their own right, many of them are judges. I still can call them. They still watch my 9-year-old grow up. They were people at my baby shower. Those relationships across the state are valuable because those relationships allowed me to not just show up in a venue that I've never been in, but then to give me an opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to go into this new venue. Let me call someone that I know that can be able to share with me, what is it like to practice law in this particular area? What's the jury pool like? And so not just the professional piece, because I think oftentimes we look at things and say, oh, that's a judge, let me go and meet him. But the person on the way to meet the judge is important, because it's important for you to know who's the person outside of chambers that's keeping the judge's calendar. And so sometimes you can miss that. And so that relationship that you develop with court administrators, files, clerks, and other individuals, these are the people who have the power to lose your file. So and they have the power to also tell you, this is probably a good day to hear that motion. This may not be a good day to hear the motion, and to be able to offer you some real insight. And so understanding that when we walk into a room, it's not important that we just simply identify the person who sort of appears to be at the top, but talk to everyone along the way. Because someday that may be the person that you can call on and say, I don't know anything about construction law, and I saw that you were outside working at the courthouse, building on this tile, and I need to know what's a good rate for tile. And so, because I've got this case that I'm now trying to figure out, how does this work? And so, I think that those are invaluable opportunities.
That's such wonderful advice. I think, relationships are so important, and it's so wonderful to hear how you have built such an amazing firm. And your firm has grown tremendously. It has grown tremendously. Tell us about that growth, and also specifically about your commitment to diversity and inclusion in that process.
So we started the firm. First it was just me, and then I retained a law partner. And, I pulled him from a big firm, and he was on board. And we started the firm thinking, high hopes, great expectations. We probably were more afraid that either one of us would even share with each other. But we practiced law from 2007 to 2014. And in 2014, it was just sort of the two of us. And we had, every now and then we would have, contract lawyers who would do some work with us and help out a lot. And then we would have, an associate. And sometimes they would just, head off to, greener pastures at some point and leave amicably. But nonetheless, we were a small firm, still growing. And in 2014, my partner left to go in-house to one of our clients. I sent him over to, go and have a meeting, and he comes back with a job. And so the next day, I started reaching out to those individuals who were doing contract work for us. And it was probably about 7 or 8 of them. And at some point, I decided in the next 2 weeks that I needed to have more people on my team in order to secure and maintain the clients that we had. And so I hired 10 lawyers. And that was huge. That was massive. We ended up and now we currently have 12 lawyers that are on the team, and a host of paraprofessional staff that sort of help make things work. And it's been wonderful. We laugh and joke with my former partner. He says, that's exactly what happens. I leave you and you need to hire 10 people to replace me. And so, but those are the fun things about having people who are already sort of in your court, and having a group of people to support you both personally and professionally is invaluable. When I was first hearing about the fact that we would be doing this webinar, I thought, I got a couple people I need to sent a message to about it, and then it turned into, half of everyone in my contact. So there are a lot of people who are friends of ours who are watching and hopefully tuning in and sharing some of, saying either, yes, that's good, that's amen, or that's not right. But hopefully more amens.
Good. And so will you talk a little bit about diversity in your law firm and your commitment to that? I know that you have.
We have quite a few women lawyers in our firm,
Yeah.
which is dynamic. In fact, I was doing a count the other day. We've got 8 women lawyers that are practicing in the firm and doing work for us and across the state. And, I was having a conversation. I attended Mississippi College for law school. So one of the things that I reached out to the law school at one point a couple of years ago saying, hey, I'm thinking about maybe making sure that we are focusing on some diversity. So I need some more diverse candidates if you can send them to me. So, initially the list that I received a great group of potential third-year law students who were getting ready to go and do some law clerk and eventually be taking the bar. And so reached out to them, and I received a great number of what we consider diverse individuals. And so they were African-American women, and they were wonderful Caucasian women, and then they were great Hispanic women. And I said, oddly enough, guys, I need white men. And so that began a very important discussion, because when we talk about diversity, sometimes the diversity that we think that we're talking about looks very different. And so that means a lot of different things to different people. We do have the advantage, I think, of having a group of folks who are from across the state. They have hometowns in different spaces. We've got someone from Colorado who's here at the firm. And so we've got quite a few people from, hometowns in different areas. So when you practice law throughout the state, you need lots of people because they can share their experiences. They can tell you a little bit about the jury pool. They can tell you a little bit about maybe practicing law in that area. So it has been great to be able to have that sort of diverse group of folks, because we can then share our different and varying experiences. And so we do laugh about the fact that most of our colleagues are Mississippi College law colleagues. In fact, we were sending an email out the other day to promote the alumni dinner for MC, and I sent it to the staff, and we had one person chime in from University of Mississippi that says, hey guys, I know I'm in the sea of a lot of MC law people, but I'm the person from University of Mississippi. And so we say, you're absolutely right. We're trying to keep the firm diverse. And so there is a lot, like I said, something to be said about the diversity in the firm. We are the only firm in the state of Mississippi that's our size, that's led by an African-American woman. And so to some degree, we're a unicorn, and we embrace being a unicorn, and we're happy about it. But we also know that comes with an awesome responsibility to be able to share with our clients varying perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. Let's talk nuts and bolts. So how do you what are your top tips for starting a law firm? You literally helped write the book on this. And so I know you have many, many wonderful tips. I've read them. And but what would you say to our viewers as just some primary main tips?
I say you pick 3 people. And you pick 3 people who are in the area that you like to eventually be. Pick someone who's perhaps been practicing law for about the same time that you have, that maybe have their own practice. Pick someone who is probably more senior, that's been out maybe 10 or 15 years. And then pick someone who's been doing this show for about 20, 25 years. Have some conversations with them, interview with them, talk with them about, simply give them a call, even before you decide to leave your current employment. Share with them and say, this is what I'm interested in doing. Tell me what are some of the things that you thought was very valuable. And so I did that. That's exactly what I did. I reached out to some people, and they shared with me the best rates for square footage on buildings. What are A, B, and C sort of ideal rates when you start talking about leasing space? Do you want to lease? Do you want to go in-house with someone who's already established? What are the values that's added to that? We talked about telephone systems. We talked about, what's the best technology to use if you've got just two people that's in the firm. We talk a little bit about, how do I select a partner? What are some of the things that we need to have that's consistent? And so, a lot of times we sort of pick friends of ours who, you studied with them, you were in law school together, you are study partners together. And that's great. And it seemed like a really good idea. But turns out if the person doesn't have really good credit and you don't have really good credit, you all may already be in a disastrous situation even before you open your doors. And even when you're thinking about credit, you've got to pick a really good banker. You need to figure out, what relationships are you going to establish with bankers? And so if you don't have that, you want to go ahead and do that even before you leave your current full-time employment. You may want to go ahead and say, let me secure a credit line that's going to be able to help me. Let me make sure I pay off some, debt that I currently have that may at some point, eventually place me in a place where I will have to have a job. I will have to have income. And so when you're first starting a practice, some of the things that you're thinking about is, how do we sort of keep things afloat? How do we continue to make pay expenses? And so the conversation you are having with those three people are probably going to be about a lot of discussions about financial, a lot of discussions about your technology, legal research opportunities. The Mississippi Bar, for example, has great programs and resources that are available. And I think that the ABA also has very similar programs. So there are lots of books already written about this stuff. You shouldn't have to spend a whole lot of time sort of guessing because there's so much information that's out there, on the web and also actual paper book about these things that you can find out a wealth of information. The ABA recently, and I've contributed to one of the articles, the 101 Women's Journey to Opening Their Own Law Firm, The Road to Independence. And that book, I was only one of the contributors, and I felt like the baby in the book because there were people who had been practicing for many, 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 many years, but I could go in and look at the list and see the things that they thought was very important. So I think that that's going to be very helpful to utilize all those sorts of resources that's already available to you. One of the things that I thought was also helpful is as a student, and I noticed this in even hiring prospective employees, is that one of the things that I find helpful is that you don't have to start off and buy your own postage machine and buy your own everything. You can actually, have a conversation with an attorney who perhaps has an office in their space already and say, may I borrow or may I, sort of camp out in your space in exchange for me doing some legal research for you at a reduced rate, or let me do some work. It looks like you've got a ton of work that you need to do in this area. Identify the practice in the area of law that you're interested in and say, let me go and identify that area. If that's family law that you're interested in doing, then find a great family law lawyer who's been doing this for a while and share with them how can we possibly, grow from that. So you got a lawyer who's been there for a while. You can say, let me just borrow your space and I'll learn some stuff. So you can now have the access of going down the hall and asking a question or being available for work when it comes in. So you now have built-in referral. You have a conference room that you didn't have to pay for. And you've got a mentor that's right there in the building. So, and you're still not paying overhead in a huge kind of way. So those are opportunities that we sometimes forget about.
Right, absolutely. I experienced a tiny glitch. Can you hear me okay still?
I can hear you.
Oh,
yes.
Wonderful. Okay, great. It froze on my end, but just seems like we're good. So yes, wonderful advice. And I will say that the book is absolutely wonderful. It's available at the ABA's website, and just so many wonderful practical tips. And thank you for contributing to that book. It's wonderful. And I would highly recommend that our viewers who are thinking about hanging out a shingle or who are 3 weeks in, you get a copy because it's really a good practical piece. So you mentioned earlier that you're a mom and you have a wonderful story about becoming a mom in the early startup of your firm. Will you tell us about that?
So I have a wonderful daughter, Amari Elizabeth is her name, and she's 9 years old. And we were planning for Amari, and in the midst of trying to decide, where the practice was going to be, the location. I, by the way, did end up leasing that building that I would come down the street and see every afternoon. But finding furniture and hanging drapes, and in the midst of all of that commotion, we had forgotten that we had planned for Amari. And sure enough, as I was hanging drapes and had been to the doctor to visit to find out what was going on, the doctor said, "Yeah, it turns out looks like we've got a little one brewing." And so, it's a good thing, because I don't know if I probably would have taken the risk going, "Oh my goodness, I'm about to be a mom. I probably should find somewhere stable and ensure I've got income." And so, at the time it was a real, ongoing joke. It's like, well, when you start asking God to bless you, He's got such a great sense of humor. He does it all at one time. So he gives you this great firm, a great location, and a little one to boot. So, we, my partner and I, it's funny because the following year, he received a little shocker as well. And so him and his wife were having twins. And so we laugh about the fact the first 3 years of the practice, none of us slept because we were always up either changing diapers or doing something fun like that. And so, but it's probably the best advice I ever received came from a federal judge. And she said to me, "You need to have a person that you can call at a moment's notice and say, without a million questions, I need your help. I need you to go and do this and this." And they just simply say, "Okay." And so, juggling and making sure that we have a good balance of things is so important. And part of the reason why we're able to do that is because we have people to help us. And so I remember saying that, and I remember thinking, yeah, but how are we going to afford all of that? Well, when you think about it, quite honestly, when you get everything sort of lined up and you pick the right sitters and you have the best person who's going to be the person to take care of the lawn and make sure that the car is where it needs to be, and all these other things that we do to support our family and, our parents and everything else that we do in that regard, we save a lot of time and a lot of money, because you now have more time to spend with them, because you're not worried about things like, am I going to be able to finish this brief? Because I worked a couple of hours extra and had the sitter to come and help out that afternoon, so that on Friday or Saturday we could go and have dinner and hang out when we have more time to really spend with each other. So it's about figuring out what you want, and trying to figure out how to best balance that. I will not kid you and say that I've got it all figured out. I certainly think it's an ongoing effort. Some days we think, oh my goodness, how are we going to get all this done? But I think you create some really good environments with your family, and with your friends. And so they have some really good expectations. From the moment that you say, I'm going to go and take the bar exam, or I'm going to start law school, you already begin the process of saying, this is how our lives are going to probably change. These are going to be some things that's going to look a little different. And so I think it's important to me, as a person who's going to be setting these goals, and I'll need your support. And sometimes that means that we're going to be able to be on one accord, and sometimes it's not. But we're going to figure it out together. And I think that once you have that attitude, you can just about do anything.
Yeah. So you knew that you were going to be a lawyer when you were 8. Does your daughter want to be a lawyer? She's 9.
She's 9. She's decided that she's likes to be a baker. That's what she said this week. And so last week she wanted to be a designer. So I think that she does come to the office. She does work. In fact, we were organizing some documents, and she has a timesheet. And so she's already learning about the importance of a billable hour. And so we had some discussions about, would you like to get paid by the hour, or would you like to get paid by the day? And she said, I think I like to get paid by the day, because if I'm getting paid by the hour, I can only bill you for the time that I actually work. And I said, absolutely. So the time that you're spending sitting on the sofa and watching Littlest Pet Shop may very well not count as billable time for mommy. And so we resolved that we would probably pay her by the day. So she still is a member of the staff, and people expect to see her at some point. But she's really good about organizing and helping. She's got medical records, chronological order, without a problem. We in fact laugh about the fact that she has the ability to do that already. So she's spending a lot of time. Even if she decides that she does not want to be on work, she's going to have a whole lot of business savvy about her. That's for sure.
I love it.
Because she constantly says, we're going to do this. She says, well, this is what happens when your name is outside. This is what happens when your name is outside. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love it. I love it. I can't wait I have a 3-year-old now, and I can't wait till he's in school and can stop by the office and we can have a little desk for homework. We'll see. We'll see how that works out.
But I think it's important to figure out how to incorporate your life. I mean, there are going to be things that we want to be honest about how we practice law. We want to be honest about what our goals are and our objectives. And sometimes those are very different for different people. And so you've got to figure out what you really want to do, what you're really interested in. It's perfectly acceptable to try a few things before you get it right. I would encourage doing that earlier in your career, probably than later. But if you probably get to the place where you decide that you need to do that, the best opportunity you can have is, again, going into someone else's office and saying, hey, do you have any contract work that maybe I can do so that I can really try this skill, try this set, see if I really like it. And it's the best way to be able to do.
Yeah. So what advice do you have for women generally, women in the law, whether they're starting a firm or whether they are going into a larger firm or no matter what they do, or in law school even, like what are your general tips for women as they enter this field?
So I think that it's important to develop a plan, develop a goal. One of the things is it's very clear that if you don't write it down, that you need to make a plan, and that you need to write it down and make it plain so that you will understand, you will know what your vision is and what your goal is ultimately, and even start to put some time frames onto that. Start talking about, this is what I want to do. I've been interested in doing this for some time. What are some of the things that I'll need to do in order to get at that place? The other thing is to not just hang around with your friends, the people who are your age, who are doing what you do. Sometimes you need to break away and hang around other people who are already where you want to be. And so incorporate that together. You're not just going to eliminate all of your good friends that you've had in college who may or may not be lawyers, but it'll be a good thing to broaden your circle. It's perfectly fine to make new friends and keep the old. And that's exactly what I think is important. That's one of the old Girl Scout songs. But I think that the reality is that there's some value in that, value in expanding your resources and the group of people that you meet and connect with, because ultimately at the end of the day, you're going to need some people for different things, even if it's just a place to find out who has the best place to get a haircut that's going to get you in and out so you can get to court on time. I mean, so there's going to be some things that are going to be life value adding things, not necessarily just lawyer things, but life value adding. So that would be my best advice. And follow your passion.
Excellent. Yes. Well, that's my last question for you. So at Ms. JD, one thing that's really important to us, we named an entire conference over this, is living a passion forward life. And so we want to know, what are you passionate about right now?
So I'm pretty excited about, quite honestly, managing a firm. I would not have thought that it would be this much fun. Some days are not fun. I'm not going to say that. But it's interesting to see something as it grows. And I love getting out and talking to people. It turns out, that's part of having a firm is business development and discussions. But I think that at the end of the day, you want to be able to come back to the office and focus on how do we do things better. And so I have a passion for doing things better. How do we never stop improving, to be able to get to a place where we can see some real change. And you can see it how clients, are appreciative, and there's some value to saying, we're going to do it this way and we're going to try something different. And we're hoping that you're going to be on board with that. I think there's some value to it.
Absolutely. Well,
and I love to travel. I love to hang out with friends and family and throw really good barbecues. And so that's always a value. That's always something I'm really interested in. So if I can figure out how to do all of that and still get a barbecue in with great Mississippi weather, that's exactly what I'm hoping to do.
Oh, perfect. That is perfect. I love it. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us at Ms. JD. And we so appreciate this opportunity to have a conversation and just, hear from somebody who's taken this path and is still passionate about it and who enjoys the work. And, I agree. I'm really passionate about starting this firm, and some days I'm frustrated because I can't figure out how to print an envelope. But I think seeing you and your passion and your enthusiasm for the law is just really exciting to me. Looking down this path, and so thank you so much for your time on behalf of all of us at Ms. JD. And also thank you to Laura, who is kind of behind the scenes here and making sure this all worked and got us connected. And so thank you, Laura. So
thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.